Hi, this is Jill.
And this is Caryn.
And you're listening to Scream Girl Squad.
Time to overthink welcoming people to our podcast.
Can we just say that?
Which word do I bleep? Well, hey everybody, this is Caryn. Which you would have just heard because the intro music just faded out.
This is Jill, by the way. I'm here too.
We're both here together on a lovely, warm summer afternoon.
Indeed.
Actually, warm is not the appropriate word. It is
super hot.
It's crazy hot. Is it over 100 today?
I don't know. It was the other day. I don't know if it is today.
I'm not down with this summer heat.
I am a spring and fall kind of girl. Not too hot, not too cold.
This is an appropriate day to be talking about Stranger Things Season 3, though.
For sure.
Because it's a very, summer movie.
Definitely.
July 4th, hot weather, being out of school.
Which I miss being a thing.
I miss that being a thing, too. I'm always harassing my nieces and nephews, like, when do you go back to school? When do you go back to school? Because
it's not fair that you're just chilling.
Yeah. And you can tell they're ready. They're like, I'm totally jazzed to go back and start my classes again. And I remember being that way, too. I remember being excited about back-to-school sales, which I shouldn't be talking about in the past tense because I was at Costco 2 days ago and did get excited about the back-to-school supplies. But I remember being bored at the end of summer and completely ready for something new.
Well, we would always, we could only play so many video games and watch so many movies or whatever we were going to do before we, started losing our minds.
Yeah, eat so many cans of Chef Boyardee ravioli.
Ridiculous. How we didn't die is a miracle. I was explaining to Rachel the other day how our lunch was like, for $1 you could get a can of pop and a bag of chips, and she's like, that was your lunch? And I was like, yeah.
It's very well balanced.
You got sometimes there was ice cream.
Sometimes. Oh, I forgot about that. Yep. Kelly and I, when we were on our road trip to Boise, he bought that meal at a gas station because he wanted to relive my junior high school diet.
And did he feel just awful inside?
He did, yeah.
I can't imagine.
It's not
healthy.
No, it's not good for you at all.
But we didn't eat healthy, ever.
No.
So.
My brain's not working. I, honest to God, feel like my brain has been overcooked by this heat.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm all sluggish.
It's awful.
And when it gets this hot, all I want to do is sit inside and play video games and read books and watch movies and basically do anything that takes me out of the heat and puts me smack dab in front of the air conditioner vent.
Yep.
So if you haven't watched Stranger Things and it's hot where you are, this is definitely a good time to do it because nothing says let's park ourselves in front of Netflix for 8 hours like the summer heat.
For sure.
Yeah. So when Jill and I watched Stranger Things separately, most of the time we aim to watch something together and then record the episode immediately after, so all of our thoughts are very fresh. But Stranger Things was just too long, so we watched it separately. Did you watch it all in one go?
No, I had to watch it sporadically, which was upsetting, but...
Just because of adulting and time constraints? I had to do the same thing, mostly because I could only watch it during the day.
Yeah.
Not for fright reasons. Not like, oh, I'm so scared I have to watch it while there's light outside. But Stranger Things Season 3 is very flashy. I don't know if it's necessarily more flashy than the past seasons or if I'm just a little bit more photosensitive now than I was a couple of years ago. They do have nice little warnings at the beginning of every episode saying... This won't be comfortable.
Just FYI.
Yeah. So I listened to the warnings. I watched it during the day with sunlight streaming in through the windows and with my TV over in one corner of my field of vision so that it wasn't taking everything over. And it still was significantly flashy. So if you are photosensitive, take heed that you might need a watching buddy so you can pull down your eye mask or whatever you need to do to get through it. So it definitely has that going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but despite having to break it up over the course of a couple of days, we did watch it as close together as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think within 3 days, I had watched it.
Would you classify it as binge-worthy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was really bummed I had to stop. So.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Oh no, it's dark outside.
Yeah. I was always like, I don't need sleep. Yeah. I do. So, spoiler-free rundown. We catch up with the kids, right? We left them at the end of season 2, and they just closed the gate. So, this season is about what happens after that. Mike and 11 are all gross and cute and coupley. Dustin has just gotten back from science camp where he meets this great girl. They tell you all this in the first episode, who is from Salt Lake City, which was a good shout out for us. We enjoyed that. And Lucas and Max are dating-ish. They break up a lot. It seems very dramatic in junior high, like Caryn and I's junior high relationships.
Oh, I identified with that hardcore.
Yep. Caryn once made me break up with a boy because she didn't have a boyfriend and didn't want me to have one.
That was just paying it forward, baby. I did the same thing because our mutual friend Shannon started that whole little push.
It was all of us girls had to dump our boyfriends because Shannon broke up with hers. And I think it even all happened in one night. I'm so sorry to all those boys in our lives when we were 13. Shannon ran the show.
Let's face it, 13-year-old Caryn was no peach. I did that kid a favor.
This is probably true. I was also not too much of a treasure, but Nancy and Jonathan are working at a newspaper, interning, so they're all still coupley. World-class hero Steve Harrington is working at an ice cream store, and with a new character who we can talk about later, but I love her. And I think that's pretty much the gist. 11's still living with Hopper. Mike's mom is working at the same place. So that's all.
Mike's mom?
The same. Sorry, not Mike's mom. Will's mom. Mike's mom is hanging out at the pool and oogling the stepbrother. Gross. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. That was all like in the trailers though, so I don't feel like that's a spoiler. So we could talk about how gross it is to oogle someone the same age as your children.
Yeah.
Because gross.
I agree.
I don't understand why that was a plot point.
We talked about that in the bonus episode, about how you know that you're aging correctly when you start becoming more attracted to things that are common on older people. Like the hairier chests and the bigger beards, and you leave the things that you thought were hot in high school behind. So, yeah, so I think that pretty well sums up what's going on with all the kids.
Yeah.
And with all the adults, basically. It's the middle of summer. July 4th weekend is coming up. There's like a big town carnival coming up to celebrate the holiday. And we're kind of in this state of flux for poor little Dustin, who came home from camp to find all of his friends coupled off and interested in other things, and he's so excited to share what he's been doing all summer and feels like no one is interested in what he's been doing, and so he feels like things are a little bit fractured.
Yes.
And so, you know, the little friend group is experiencing those classic growing pains, and on top of that, something that they thought they'd put behind them, the menace from the Upside Down, is still revealing itself to have a foothold in their world. So,
Right.
Great place to start a new season.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good transitionary period
Yeah.
in everyone's lives.
What did you find yourself eating while you were watching Stranger Things?
Popcorn. But mostly just drinking. Rachel's been making watermelon lemonade.
Ooh.
So
That sounds
we
good.
blend it with ice.
Oh,
And
that sounds
it's
amazing.
magical.
With fresh watermelon? Wow. All right.
And lemons.
That sounds delightful. So I think that we should rate it enjoyment factor wise on glasses of ice cold watermelon lemonade.
I'm okay with that.
Because I kind of want one of those right now, despite the fact that I am allergic to watermelon.
I was like, I can go grab. Oh, wait.
It's the bane of every summer.
Yes.
They always sound delicious. It's one of the few things I'm allergic to that I wish I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bananas, take them or leave them.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
So, it's sad.
So, Stranger Things, scale of 1 to 5 ice cold glasses of watermelon lemonade.
Oh, 5.
5 out of 5.
I loved it. Yep.
And it is the third season
complaints.
in what's hopefully going to be an ongoing series.
Mm-hmm.
So, a little bit of retrospective. Would you rate it gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal in terms of best out of the 3 seasons?
Oh, that's hard because I love all the seasons for different reasons. Like, the first one is purely like nostalgia. I loved all the comparisons to stuff from the 80s and stuff from my childhood. And it made me want to watch E.T. and Goonies and all kinds of other amazing Adventure Time movies. But then this season, like, you're so in love with all of the characters, and it's more... you're involved in their lives and you care about them so much. Like, it's a different kind of connection. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's good. I'll accept that answer.
All right.
It is a tough question. It's like asking someone who their favorite band is.
Right. What kind of a mood I'm in.
Yeah.
What kind of pants am I wearing? These things make a difference.
Based on the pants you're wearing now. No, I'm just kidding.
I do have my grumpy pants on, which usually means like 5-finger death punch or something. So.
Grumpy pants. Well, I totally agree. 5 out of 5 glasses of ice cold watermelon lemonade. That every episode worked. Every character did something that endeared themselves to me even more deeply. And I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't want it to end.
Agreed. I never want it to end.
Yeah. So that's an easy score to give. Now, I don't know if Stranger Things is necessarily considered horror by a lot of people. Some people, I think, might classify it more as an adventure type TV show.
Sci-fi, maybe.
Mm-hmm. But because we're a horror podcast, I feel like we're pretty much obligated to also rate it on a Fright level as well. So, a scale of 5 out of 5 gloopy exploding monsters. Mm-hmm. How would you rate it Fright-wise?
Like a 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it was intense, but I wouldn't say I was scared at all.
Yeah, intense is a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Jill and I rarely agree so completely on our ratings, but I would also give it a 2. There were some great jump scares in it. There was a lot of good tension, but... you know, I don't think it's too scary for your average person at all.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Just an enjoyable level of weirdness and creepiness and fun.
Yeah. Should we jump into some full spoiler discussion?
Spoilers.
Cool. Okay. Full spoilers. So episode 1... I love the scene when Dustin comes home from camp and he thinks none of his friends are there and they all are like hiding and try to surprise him, and they build up the tension really well of like his toys kind of come to life because Eleven's making them, and he like follows a toy car into the living room, and then they all jump out at him and he totally pepper sprays or sprays him with something.
I think he had hairspray and some matches or something. I think he was trying to make a
hairspray. Yeah,
like the blowtorch you
totally
and I made.
hairsprays Lucas in the face.
Yes.
And that was magical. So
that was a great moment.
It was really great.
Yeah, and I love how they're all kind of hiding behind the fireplace, laughing their asses off. None of them thinking, oh boy, after everything that we just went through, maybe this might be a little traumatic of a way to welcome our friend home.
Nah.
Let's just do it because it'll be funny.
It'll be funny.
Yeah. No, that was a great way to open things up. And I did totally, my favorite part, I think, was watching how Hopper is responding to Eleven being in a romantic relationship.
Oh my gosh, yes.
All the kissing between Mike and Eleven, and Hopper is just like seething in his living room and trying to watch TV, but he's just like, ha,
He
ha,
keeps
ha.
telling him they have to leave the door open 3 inches, but they're clearly like in her bedroom kissing and listening to music, and he is trying so hard not to just like kick the door in and throw Mike out, and it makes me so happy.
I don't know if it was just me, but during that scene when he's all angry, I kept thinking about John Mulaney's story about the Salt and Pepper Diner and the one dad that's totally onto them and knows what they're doing.
Yes.
So that's what I was like picturing in my mind while watching Hopper get so angry. And totally relatable too, because I remember having, kissing parties and having boys over, and the kind of line that your parents had to walk of like, all right, we don't want to be those parents that strangle the life out of them and don't let them do anything, but we're super not down with all of this kissing.
Yes.
So they definitely kicked it off super strong for me. And then in that very first episode is when they had the scene from the preview where Mike's mom is totally ogling Billy.
And not just Mike's mom.
Yeah.
Like 5 moms go to the pool just so they can oogle this teenage boy. And it's weird. It's real weird.
Yeah.
And uncomfortable.
And the kid that plays Billy is objectively attractive. He's a
And
cute
not
guy.
actually 16 years old, so
Yeah.
that helps too. But
But the way that they style him for that role with his kind of mullet haircut and that awful mustache that he has.
it's awful.
Yeah, I'm sure that was the style at the time.
Yeah.
It just added like another level of discomfort for me for some reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not okay.
Well, and it was one thing when the moms are all there and they're all like, like plumping themselves up in their bathing suits and checking their makeup and their contacts before he walks out. But then he approaches Mike's mom and like very clearly propositions her to meet him at the motel on the outskirts of town and actually like take this flirtatious thing they have going on to the next level. And she agrees to do it,
Yeah.
which, wow.
She ends up not showing up in the end, which props to her.
Oh, and it was a
But-
really cute reason, too. She's gotten herself, like, all dressed up and ready to go, and she's about to leave the house, and she sees her husband asleep in a, like, recliner with their child on his chest. And can't
And she was just like, nope, this is my family. This is my choice.
Yeah.
And stayed, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I really liked that they played it that way.
Yeah.
Billy, meanwhile, is driving to the rendezvous point and gets into a car accident outside of this old mill. And finds himself pretty quickly under the thrall of this being that has remained in our world after the gate was closed. And the being kind of possesses him. And they call it the Mind Flayer, which is
Yes.
another callback to D&D that I just adore so much.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah. So the Mind Flayer kind of possesses Billy and charges him with building an army of other people for the Mind Flayer to take control of. And it's kind of a little body snatchers, a little bit of the faculty.
It definitely had the body snatchers thing happening. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, everyone's like,
Everyone's like normal but slightly off. So you could only tell if you knew to look for those slight differences.
Yeah.
I was actually a little bummed that they didn't play on that a little bit more about like the body snatchery, like nobody was like, he looked weird. There was a little bit with the boss at the newspaper, but it was after stuff had happened.
yeah, that's a good point. No one really pointed out people behaving oddly or, yeah. Well, and I think they kind of explained that a little bit because Will is saying that it's almost as though the Mind Flayer was dormant inside of his brain in the background. And then when he needed to take over, he would activate and take Will over then. So maybe no one really noticed anything was off because it was subtle because they were still in complete control of their faculties. They were still themselves until the Mind Flayer decided, all right, time for you to start wolfing down fertilizer and,
That's true.
and rat poison or whatever.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't like a big, like the faculty, they all stand out in the middle of the football field and drink the sprinklers because they need a lot of water, or there's just water everywhere because it was like dehydrating the human bodies or whatever. And I've seen this movie way too many times, but there were definite like differences in people and the way they dressed and things like that. And there wasn't any of that. So
this makes me think that we really need to watch and review The Faculty here in the very near future. It's a classic.
Deal.
Yeah. All right.
I'm okay with that. Love me some 2000s Josh Hartnett. So back to the kids, their whole dynamic is weird, right? So Dustin comes home from camp. Will is just super third wheeling it up, fifth wheeling it up, I guess you could say, because there's the two couples and then there's just Will hanging out, and all poor Will wants to do is play D&D and still be kids.
Kelly, when we were sitting there watching it, every time Will would be like, come on guys, I just want to play D&D, Kelly would turn to me and say, that's me. I've never identified with a character so much.
Yeah, but he definitely was behind the rest of his friends who are getting to that teenage age where they just want to hang out with the opposite sex and be a little more grown up and not just play games in the basement. And that was really hard for Will. He had a really hard time adjusting to that new dynamic, which I know, like, I was slower to get interested in boys than like you and our friend Shannon. And for a while I was just like, well, they like boys, so I pretend to like boys. And, I caught up eventually, but there's always that dynamic of, not everybody's always in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
And that creates...
Not everyone's hormones start raging out of control at exactly the same instant.
Right.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah. Everybody at the exact same second. That would be...
Population.
Terrifying.
Rabbit town.
Yeah. Oh, boy. So, yeah, poor Will and his left-outedness was a little rough. But then Dustin, my homeboy, he is the one that I just love because he's the funny one, and I always fall in love with the funny one. That's just my life. So,
yeah.
He goes to see his new best friend, Steve.
Which is my favorite relationship in the entire series.
Seriously. So Steve's working at this ice cream shop, and earlier in the episode before Dustin comes back, like, Steve, the girl he's working with, she comes and says, Steve, your kids are here. And he comes out and sneaks them all in the back so they can sneak into the movie theater, which is just hilarious because Steve taking care of these kids. So Robin's always giving him a hard time about that. And like, what is with all these kids? And it's not like he can tell her like, well, we saved the world a couple times. So now they just kind of hang around.
Nothing bonds you like saving the world.
Whatever. But then so Dustin comes back and he immediately goes to see Steve. And Steve is the first one who's like genuinely excited to see him. And they have this whole secret handshake now, which is just the cutest thing in the whole world. That's and awesome. They immediately start talking. And I love the running joke through the whole season that Dustin has this girlfriend and everyone says girlfriend, like with air quotes.
Yes.
And nobody believes he actually has this girlfriend.
Which was also so relatable because I just remember that being a thing. Like, oh, you met your girlfriend who lives in Canada conveniently?
Right.
When Dustin gets back from camp, his first priority is essentially, I want to introduce all of my wonderful friends to my adorable girlfriend. So he drags them on this trek to the top of a hill so he can set up an antenna that he has named Cerebro from the X-Men, which was adorable and nerdy, and I loved it. So it's essentially like a ham radio, right?
With a huge antenna so that it reaches way far.
Yes. So he's up at the top of the hill with his antenna set up, trying and failing to reach his girlfriend, which further solidifies to the group that he's just completely made this person up and she doesn't really exist. So they leave him alone, and he doesn't give up. He's up there trying again and again, and he intercepts a message that's in Russian and records it.
That's right.
And since he can't find any of his buddies, and they're not really interested in hanging out anyway, because they're all coupled off and doing their thing, he goes to see his good buddy Steve the babysitter.
So he and Steve start trying to decode this message, and Robin immediately inserts herself into the situation, and she's like, you guys need me, which is just so rad.
And she completely accurate.
Completely accurate. She is just the coolest girl in the whole world. So she just inserts herself in the situation and solves the code, and that it has to do with the mall. And basically they figure out that Russians have built an underground base below the mall.
Which is so adorably 1980s.
Right? Because Russians taking over the country was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like, the Cold War was in full swing. And so, they have this secret underground layer under the mall. So then they become obsessed with getting in there and figuring out what's going on.
And the way they get in there is amazing.
Seriously. So somehow, how do they convince her? They figure out they can't crawl, like none of them can fit in this vent hole.
Yeah.
So they bribe
Lucas's
little sister.
Who is so sassy.
So sassy. It's ridiculous. Her mother has got her hands full with that one. They bribe her with like a year's worth of free ice cream to come help them break into this Russian base that they have no idea what they're getting into.
Yeah.
And I just think it's hilarious that they take like a 10-year-old girl with them.
And more hilarious is that this girl somehow like randomly has an incredible aptitude for this.
Yes.
She's really good at measuring distance by how many little crawl steps she's taken in the vent and reading schematics.
And she's like incredibly intelligent and just knows everything.
She's supposed to be like maybe 10.
She was another excellent addition to this season that I'm really glad we got more of her, because we had kind of seen like flashes of her in previous seasons, but this was the first like full swing introduction to this amazing sassy pants, and I loved her. So
yes. So they convince Lucas's little sister to go into the air vents. She manages to open up the elevator and, a storage room, really. They go inside of it and get trapped inside and then learn it's an elevator, and they're taken down into the depths into this Russian compound. Meanwhile...
And then on the other side, the rest of the group are having all of their drama, right? Mike and Eleven break up because Hopper scares Mike and tells him he has to back off and stop calling Eleven so much. Yes. And there's a really adorable scene with Hopper and Joyce, and she's trying to tell him, like, sit them down, have a calm conversation, lay out some boundaries, like giving him really great parenting advice. And he listens to none of it and totally pulls a my dad and pulls the kid into his truck and just basically says, stop it or I'll kill you. So
effective.
It worked. So Mike's trying really hard not to see 11 one day because he's terrified of Hopper, and 11 gets mad and breaks up with him.
Because she can tell he's lying.
Yes. And she doesn't like lying. So she dumps him, and then the girls decide to spy on the boys, which goes just as horrible as you can imagine. Teenage boys alone. There was lots of, burping and farting and being disgusting.
And lots of come on, guys. Let's just
want to play
D&D.
D&D. And so 11, she does that thing where she goes inside her head and walks into this blackened space.
Yeah. She and Max are kind of playing
a game.
It's like a twisted version of Spin the Bottle.
Yeah, like pick a person and let's go see where they are and what they're doing. Because they enjoyed spying on the boys, even though it was gross.
Yeah.
And I love the relationship between 11 and Max in this season.
Yeah.
And how they... 11 hasn't really had a girlfriend, which I think is so important. And so it was good that they showed that relationship. And Max kind of taught her, like, no, you get to pick your own style. Pick what you like, not what Mike likes, not what Hopper likes. What do you like?
Yeah.
And so it was good that she had someone like that to explain that she can make her own decisions.
Their relationship is awesome.
Yeah, I really liked that. So they're playing this weird spin the bottle kind of game where they're picking people to go inside their heads, and they pick Billy and see him basically murder someone. Mm-hmm. So 11 is horrified, understandably, and that was a good, well done, creepy scene.
Yeah.
That 11's just watching, and then Billy, like, sees her in that blackness, and that was so unsettling for her and us as an audience as well.
She's not used to someone looking back at her. Yeah, she's definitely used to being the voyeur. So it is a very powerful moment when Billy turns and locks eyes with her, and she knows she's been spotted.
And it's just very like, oh, this is happening.
Yeah.
So they start freaking out. Something's wrong with this girl, right? Like, Billy killed her. So they start trying to figure out what happened. So they go back to Max's house and start looking for Billy and find a bathtub full of ice and can't figure out what is going on with that. And so they still can't find the girl. They can't find Billy. They decide to go to the girl's house. They go to the girl's house. Billy and the girl are there having dinner with her parents, and everything seems totally normal.
Yeah.
And so Max is like, listen, I know Billy can be a jerk, but I mean, clearly everything's fine, right? So we're good. But 11 can't shake that feeling that something's wrong. So they kind of keep an eye on him. Is that the accurate way of saying that?
Yeah.
So they start figuring out that he's not okay. Mm-hmm. They figure out he's possessed.
They put that together once they're able to reconnect with Will and Mike and Lucas. And they all start putting together the descriptions of what's going on. And Will keeps having this feeling on the back of his neck. He keeps getting goosebumps and feeling these kind of unsettling things that were happening when he was possessed in the season before. So he can almost feel that the mind flayer is near, or that the mind flayer is particularly active. Mm-hmm. So really the pieces don't come together until the kids are able to unsplinter themselves a little bit and reconnect and talk about what's going on.
Agreed. So yeah, they all start working on the Billy thing while Steve and Dustin are fighting the Russians. Mm-hmm. And so we've got these two storylines branched off here. And then we get a third. Mm-hmm. Joyce starts realizing that her magnets won't stick to stuff. And like at her store, all the magnets fall off. Magnets don't stick to her fridge. And she's trying to figure out why this is happening. And Hopper basically brushes her off and is just like, you're crazy. Everything's fine.
While wearing a towel.
Right. Which was really funny.
Those two were just dripping, and in some cases literally dripping with sexual tension for the entire season.
Yes, and it was adorable.
And I was shipping them pretty hard.
Pretty hard. So, and she's just fighting with him the whole time. No, you have to believe me. Something's weird. So he had asked her to dinner before she came over to fight with him, and she didn't show up because she decided to go see the kid's science teacher and say, like, what would make this happen. Mm-hmm. And he, like, built a scale model of the town and explained how, like, a really big machine could upset the magnetic force and make this all happen. And so she's like, it said it has to be the lab, right? And so she goes to Hopper, and he's like, I don't believe you. And she's like, okay, fine, I'm going to go by myself. And they have this whole fight. And so he chases her down, and they go to the lab. And they go to the lab, and they don't find anything, really. It's all closed down and broke down. The door is still closed, you know. Yeah. But then they start hearing noises, and Hopper goes off, and one of the big, scary Russians beats the crap out of him.
One of the big scary Russians who bears an insane resemblance to the Terminator in Terminator 2, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I can see that. So, yeah, he just comes, beats the crap out of Hopper, and leaves. He has no idea Joyce is there. Mm-hmm. So then they're like, okay, something's going on.
Yeah.
So they pretty quickly figure out like something's happening.
Yeah. And Joyce, who I think proves herself again and again to be the most observant person on the entire show, she saw that the attacker rode off on a motorcycle, and she even caught part of the license plate. And Hopper had previously seen a motorcycle with a big burly dude walking out to it outside the mayor's office. And the mayor is played by Jill's favorite,
Carrie Elwes.
Yep. So Hopper goes to the mayor to be like, what the heck? Who's this, like, shady dude you're running around with who just beat the holy hell out of me at the old lab?
Yep. So he goes to see the Dread Pirate Roberts himself and, like, beats the crap out of him in his office and is basically like, who is this Russian? Why is he here? And why did he just beat me up at the lab? And he's having none of it. Like, he's like, I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm not going to tell you anything. Does he give him any information? I feel like he gives him Hopper, something like, once he breaks his nose.
Yes. Hopper breaks his face, drags him to his house, and manages to get a little bit of information out of him. And they put enough together to go find one of the buildings that the Russians have purchased as part of their little plan to take over the mall and get the land that they need around the anomaly that connected to the Upside Down.
Mm-hmm. So Joyce and Hopper go on this side quest, if you will. Like my D&D reference.
Oh, yeah. I loved it.
I didn't play D&D. Caryn does. Her husband may be doing it as we speak.
That's true. He's writing a campaign in the next room right now.
But I never did a little, but I watched a couple times. So anyways, I know the term side quest. So I'm feeling pretty proud of myself right now. So they go off on this little side quest and they go see one of my favorite characters, Murray, who we had seen previously. He's the crazy, paranoid, but knows everything fella who's, hides and keeps everything really locked up in his life.
Yeah,
and
very paranoid.
Yes. So they go see him and they get the Russian first. Sorry. They get Alexei first. I'm skipping around.
My favorite character. Okay, I say my favorite character a lot. He's not actually my favorite character, but he is a great favorite.
This is hard.
He's a perfect little spoonful of extra just magic on the season. Because he's this little Russian scientist. He's probably an entire foot taller than I am. He's this Russian scientist who, by all accounts, has been brought here against his will. He witnessed one of his co-scientists being brutally murdered at the very start of the season because they failed to open a gateway to the Upside Down back in Russia. So he's in America, he's being forced to carry out this science experiment, and he's being held in an underground bunker beneath a house where some of the machinery is running, some of the power for the machine is being generated. And so Joyce and Hopper bust into this house, lift up the bed, go down into the vault beneath, have another epic little shootout with much hilarity with Joyce, who is unable to throw a gun at Hopper properly. And they take Alexei, the Russian, as kind of a hostage. But he was already kind of a hostage, so this poor guy is just sort of bouncing back and forth between, who's got me now and which one's really worse.
Who's gonna kill me? So they take Alexei to Murray, and Murray speaks Russian. So he starts translating, and they're trying to figure out, why is Alexei here? What are the Russians trying to do? What's the big plan? So Alexei's not giving them anything because he knows that the Russians will kill him, right? So in one of the best scenes, they try to make him more comfortable. So he says he wants a cherry slushy, and he gets brought strawberry. And Hopper's like, it's the same. Who cares? And it's just hilarious. So him with his slushy is just iconic at this time. So Alexei freaks out, and Hopper can't take it anymore. And he's like, I'm just going to let him go. And just throws him out. He's like, you're not giving me any information. We're done with this crap. Like, if you're not going to help us, get out. And throws him out. And Murray and Joyce are like, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? And he's like, he's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
He knows that his buddies know we have him, and he can't go back there because they will kill him. Mm-hmm. They will think that he gave us information, and so we let him go, and they will kill him. So he knows, and he can't leave. And they're like, this is crazy. How could you possibly know this? And Hopper's like, nope, it's going to happen. And he goes and he starts the car. He starts driving away. They're like, he is driving away. And Hopper's like, whatever. And right as he's about to leave, he stops the car. And Hopper just looks at them both like, yeah, that's right.
But Alexei took long enough for a little seed of doubt to creep into Hopper's face.
Just a tiny, tiny bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alexei stops and then starts cooperating because he realizes these guys would actually take care of me.
Yeah.
So he basically tells them, we've got this huge machine. We're trying to open the doorway. This is how you disable the machine, because they're like, crap, we have to make this stop. They cannot open the doorway to the Upside Down. That is a terrible plan. So
they head back to town with Alexei and Murray in tow. And there's an amazing scene where Murray's in the backseat of a convertible shouting at them to just pull over and just do it already, because obviously the sexual tension is just out of control, and they're both shocked at the suggestion. But they make a stop at the 4th of July fair first to find the kids, who of course are not at the 4th of July fair where they are supposed to be.
Because it's the 80s and no parents know where their kids are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that happens in this. Like, I think at one point they run into Will's mom and they're like, where are the kids? And she's like, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, and to Mike's mom. And
Mike's
like,
mom,
I don't know,
that's
they've
what
been
it is,
everywhere.
sorry.
They've been, like, sleeping over at this house. They've been at that house. Who cares where they are? They're kids and it's summer.
Yeah, like, whatever. They're somewhere. I'm sure they're alive. And really, the kids are, like, battling the Russians and monsters. But whatever. It's summer. Who cares?
So by this point, flipping back to the other meanwhile, in the basement of the Russian base, the foursome of...
Which get lovingly nicknamed the Scoop Troop.
The Scoop Troop. Oh my goodness. So adorable.
I love it.
So the Scoop Troop is in the basement of the Russian bunker, and they're putting together some pieces as well. They're seeing that they glimpse the machine. They can tell something iffy's going on. They're getting brutally questioned. Steve and Robin are, by a couple of, Russian goons who drug them and are trying to get some truth out of them because they're trying to figure out who do these two kids work for. They're obviously spies. And the poor teens are like, we just work at Scoops Ahoy. Like, we're just kids.
And they tell, like, the truth they tell is hilarious. Like, not even helpful stuff, and it's such a great scene.
Yes. So through a lot of luck and ingenuity, they managed to escape from the Russian bunker and reconnect with the rest of their friends and put the pieces together about what's happening with Billy. He's possessed. The Russians made a machine. They're trying to get back into the Upside Down. All this stuff.
And Hopper and Joyce meet up with them as well. Mm-hmm. But before that happens, Hopper and Joyce are at the fair.
Ugh.
And poor Alexei just really wants a corn dog. And he wants to play the games at the fair. And so he and Murray go. Joyce and Hopper are off trying to find their kids. And Hopper punches the mayor in the face while he's at it because he just likes to do that. So, so they're off at the fair, and Alexei gets left by himself because Murray goes to get him corn dogs. And they meet up, and Alexei's so excited. He won a game. He has a prize, and he's like showing it off, and Murray's so excited for him. And they're like at a distance, and crazy Russian Terminator comes walking up and shoots Alexei.
Yeah.
With a silencer so nobody notices, so it's just real quick, real quiet, shoots him and walks away.
So heartbreaking.
So heartbreaking. And so Murray's like freaking out, tries to find Hopper and Joyce, and Alexei dies by himself in an alleyway at the fair. And it just breaks my heart because he's just the cutest thing in the whole world.
And he was so excited to get his hands on the American dream, in return for the information he was going to get. citizenship and be able to live here and be able to live a normal, happy life. And he was so excited. And at the peak of that excitement is when the rug was ripped out from under him. And, oh, it was heavy.
It was hard. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But also at the fair, we got a really cute moment where Hopper and Joyce held hands. So they got like stuck in a ride and held hands, and it was adorable. Something about hand holding just makes my heart happy. So they get out of there, figure out the kids aren't there, go to the mall, and meet up with everybody for the climax.
And I should mention that back at Murray's place, Hopper calls his contact with the government to let them know.
Paul Reiser.
Yeah, Paul Reiser, which I still, every time I say him, I'm like, mad about you.
I know. He's never going to be anything but Paul for Mad About You.
And that was like 25 years ago.
Yep. So when he's not quirky Paul for Mad About You, I get a little upset.
Yeah, he's serious government guy.
I know. I was like, come on, man.
So he calls his little contact to get in touch with serious government guy Paul Reiser and say, you got to come back to Hawkins. There's stuff going on again. We need you. And Joyce gets super impatient after all of 30 seconds and calls them back to lay down the hammer and be like, no, for real, get your ass in motion. You guys need to get back to Hawkins right now.
And it's magical in full mom mode. Like, no, my kids are in danger. Get your butts on the plane.
I love Joyce over here. So much.
I love it. It's fabulous.
So the mall is where the big climax happens. And so much happens at the mall. And it didn't remind you at all of Cottonwood Mall?
A little.
Yeah. Which was my favorite mall in all of the Salt Lake Valley and was torn down when we were just out of high school, I think. But I loved that about this season because we were total mall rats. We hung out at the mall all the time.
All the time.
So for so much of it to be centered at this classic American mall that has a movie theater and a food court and an arcade and all these clothing stores.
It totally looked like the mall from the mall board game. Like, all the same decorations. What was the mall board game? Mall Madness. And you had, like, your little credit card, and you had to, like, buy stuff at certain stores in order to win. But the decorations of the mall totally reminded me of Mall Madness, too, which was a good throwback. So
yeah, 80s triangular shapes and neon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And fun fact that I saw in an interview was that the mall is still operated, like it's operational. So they were like filming this while people were just walking around and shopping.
So did they build a mall for the show? Okay, they found a mall somewhere. A mall
and filmed it at this mall.
They didn't have to redecorate it to make it look 80s? That's how it looks all the time?
Yeah.
Where is it? I want to go.
So people are apparently going there all the time now. And I can't remember where it is. I'll try and figure it out. I think they were talking about it on like Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel or one of those shows. So I'll try and find it. But they were talking about how people were still shopping and hanging out at this mall while they were filming.
That's incredible.
So people would just like wander into a scene and then they would be like, cut. And have to re-figure that out. So it was pretty great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, they're all at the mall. They all sort of reconnect, touch base, and then decide they're gonna split up again. Mm-hmm. They need some people to go into the basement and deal with the Russians. They need some people to deal with Billy. And the giant goobly monster is now pretty focused on getting rid of 11.
Yes. So that was a big scene, too.
Yeah.
11 takes command of her own powers and overrides Mike's objections and says, I'm going to try to reach Billy again. I'm going to see where he is and try to get some more information. And she makes a pretty deep connection with Billy through some of his memories, but she's talking to Billy at some points, but then, of course, the Mind Flayer takes back over and essentially tells 11, I'm coming for you. I'm going to murder you, murder all your little friends, and burn your entire world to the ground. And minutes after, the Mind Flayer does the most disgusting thing in the entire season, which happens again and again, where rats, humans, whatever it is that are in his thrall, come to him and explode.
Basically turn into goo and then meld into one giant monster.
Yeah, it looked like the pig lizard that turns inside out on Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, it was not... It was disgusting. It was gross. And it was interesting to see how many people he had managed to get to be in his army. And there was a really good scene with, we haven't really talked about Nancy and Jonathan. I'm going to be honest, I forget about them because they sort of bore me.
Yeah, well, I like both characters.
They're both great, but
they don't have a really impressive arc. They are Nancy and Jonathan, the exact same through pretty much the entire series. Their relationship goes through a little bit of strain, but really they don't experience a whole lot of change.
Right. So they figure out this whole goopy monster thing and meet up with the other kids at some point. So they have been working at this newspaper with terrifying Busey.
Jake Busey, who looks so much like his dad in this show. Like...
so terrifying that, I mean, he's like a dick the whole time, just like making fun of Nancy and saying like, this is why girls shouldn't be reporters.
Calling her Nancy Drew.
Garbage like that. Yeah. So he is just the worst and then gets taken over by the monster and becomes one of these goo things and attacks Nancy and Jonathan at the hospital. Which was kind of a really creepy, like that was probably one of the good creepy scenes was these guys from the newspaper show up and try to kill Nancy and Jonathan. Yeah.
Also, probably one of the flashiest scenes in the entire season. I think it's episode 6 maybe, and it was unbearably flashy for me. So Kelly had to do the classic, you hide over there in the dark and I will tell you what happens.
Yes. So that was a good creepy moment. But then that's kind of how they learned this is all these people that become this big goopy monster. So
and they nicknamed them the Flayed.
Yes.
Which I liked.
So the Mind Flayer is hunting them all down there at Hopper's cabin. And Eleven's like, he's coming. He says he's going to kill you all. And Will's like, he's here. I feel him. And so they all run and try to get away from this thing and end up at the mall.
Well, before that, Will's like, it's here. And this monster that's kind of like part spider, part tentacly monster thing, he starts like punching through the cabin and totally destroys Hopper's cabin trying to get to 11. And she shows like extreme displays of power again and again to like stop this thing. And they're trying to cut off its big giant tentacle arms, and her leg gets infected with like a piece of him, and it starts like moving around inside of her leg. Oh, that was gross.
It's totally the Mummy with the beetles in the skin, and it was not okay.
Yeah, that's one of those things that
that she reaches in and digs out herself like a total badass, by the way.
Yeah.
So
so that monstrous thing attacks them again at the mall.
And so they all kind of split off. Some are going to fight the big monster. Some are going to go try and use the antenna to get help, right? And then some are going down to fight the Russians. So they all split up again. And I think they're also trying to like distract Billy and make him think we've got 11 and drive off in the station wagon.
Yeah.
Because the monster thing is chasing them away from the mall when he figures out Billy sees 11 at the mall and figures out, oh crap, no, she's here. And the monster immediately turns around and starts heading back to the mall. So it worked for a minute. And then big climax fight scene at the mall.
Lots of fireworks, very appropriate for 4th of July.
Fireworks, which was pretty cool. That was
Lucas and Mike.
Lucas's idea was to grab all the fireworks. They had been at a convenience store earlier, or a grocery store earlier, and he was like, fireworks, we have to get a bunch of these. So they load up on fireworks and head back to the mall and just start throwing fireworks at the Mind Flayer, which was pretty awesome. Yeah. I really enjoyed that as a former pyromaniac. That was really fun to watch. So they're throwing fireworks at the Mind Flayer, and 11 is trying to do her mind power thing. And her powers aren't super working.
Yeah.
So that's hard. So she starts talking to Billy, and because she was in his head, and says like, hey, I saw your mom. She was pretty. She was wearing a white dress, and like describes her whole outfit. And Billy, like the human side of Billy gets turned back on. And he had like punched his sister and Mike and knocked them unconscious and dragged 11 away. Like he was clearly possessed and not himself and just being awful and terrifying. And so he quickly realizes, oh crap. And in a very emotional and very well acted scene, like he is just crying and realizes like, oh crap, I've been doing all of this horrible stuff. And the monster comes to kill 11 and he jumps in front of it. Mm-hmm. And basically like takes the bullet for her.
Yeah.
And tries to fight the monster off and is killed.
Yeah. Totally sacrifices himself for 11.
Yes. Which is just incredible. And just breaks his sister's heart. That was a really good scene. Like you could tell, because up to that point, like their relationship was not terribly explored. Like he seemed annoyed she was around and he had to drive her places, but like, I mean, you had an older brother. That was kind of typical, right? Like annoyed he had to drive us around places, but that doesn't mean he didn't care about you, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so this was totally the moment where you're like, oh, they care about each other too. Good. You know, because up to that point you weren't sure.
Yeah.
So that was a good moment that she's heartbroken and he says, I'm sorry, and dies.
Ugh.
And just, yeah.
I was not
emotional.
Expecting to cry when that happened, you know?
Yeah.
Because he's kind of a jerk. Like, all of season 2, he's terrible. You hate him. He's a home wrecker in season 3. Like, he just is very selfish. And so, you know, that last redeeming act, it got me. I totally blubbered a little bit.
They did a good job with that. Mm-hmm. So, in the meantime, in the basement with the Russians. So Joyce and Hopper and Murray all go down there and they have this plan. Alexei told him how to disable the machine and the code to get into this safe, to get the keys to disable the machine. And Murray has the wrong code.
Yes, because
it's some mathematical equation number that I'm sorry, I don't know the name of.
Something's constant.
Something's constant, yeah.
I'm also not a math-brained person.
Yeah, we were not science nerds. Sorry, everyone. So I don't know.
I'm good with words. I'm crap with numbers.
Yep. I'm good with sports. But so some mathematical constant.
Yeah.
So they get it wrong. They can't get the safe open. So they're all connected via walkie-talkies and comms, whatever. So Dustin's like,
Dustin's magic cerebro.
Can get in touch with my super hot girlfriend and she will know because she's a genius. So he gets her on
Planck's constant. I just
Planck's constant. Look at you. So he tries to get Susie on the walkie-talkie and she's like, I'll tell you, but first you have to do the thing.
Oh, the thing.
Which is just hands down my favorite part of the entire series for many reasons. So Dustin starts singing Never Ending Story with Susie in the cutest, best musical moment of any show ever. And the guy who plays Dustin is like a Broadway alum. He was in Les Mis. He played the little boy in Les Mis. And I think he's done a couple other things. But I know he was the little boy in Les Mis. So you already, like, I already knew he could sing. But hearing him sing was just adorable and cute. And it made me happy. So they sing this duet together. And the best part is watching everyone else's faces while he does this. Because everyone else that has a walkie-talkie is just like, what is happening right now? And it is magical and beautiful. Hopper's face, you can tell he's so irritated, but he's like, whatever is going to get us this number, I don't care, but seriously, wrap it up, kid. So they sing this whole big musical number, and then she gives him the number Hopper and Joyce get the keys. They run to go get that taken care of, and Russian Terminator shows up like a dick and starts a fight because he can't help it. And I don't think his mom loved him enough. So they get in a big old fight and end up out where the machine is. So in their fight, they damage the machine. So Hopper can't get back because of all of the electricity. Is that the right way of saying that?
Yeah, there's some weird type of energy.
Like force field sort of situation that he can't get back.
It traps Hopper between a wall of energy and the doorway to the upside down that's behind him that's being pried open.
So he and Joyce had recently just made plans to go on an actual date and basically confess their feelings for each other. So, of course, he had to die. So he looks at Joyce and, like, basically gives her the, go ahead, do what you have to do, look. And she turns the keys and everything explodes. It shows Russians explode. And then Hopper's just gone.
Joyce runs to go find his body later and
can't.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
So
he was vaporized.
He was, well, maybe.
Maybe.
So that's going on in the basement. So once Joyce turns the keys, Googly Monster Mind Flayer blows up. So Monster is defeated. They all meet outside in the parking lot, and 11 figures out Hopper's not coming back.
Yeah, she's looking around for Hopper and all the chaos, and her eyes meet Joyce's, and Joyce's face just communicates the loss. Oh!
It's just awful. So it cuts to 3 months later. Joyce has sold her house, and she's moving herself and Will and Jonathan and 11, who she's taken in, and they're just going to move. There's too many Russians and crazy scientists, so they have to leave. Basically, I think that's the idea. Well, and she's just had enough trauma that she just needs a fresh start.
Yeah.
You can't really blame her for that.
Yeah.
So they all pack up, move away. It's very emotional. Mike and 11 talk about how they have plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas and tell each other that they love each other, and it's adorable. And Jonathan and Nancy have a very tearful goodbye, where they also declare their undying love for each other. And am I missing anything? Oh, Will gets rid of his D&D books because he says, I don't want another party. Like, I'll never play with anyone but you.
Yeah.
Which is sweet.
Does Lucas give the D&D books to his little sister? Is that how she gets them?
I think Lucas and Dustin give them to her.
Yeah. So,
which was really great.
Because she's definitely a little bit of a nerd, which Dustin proves earlier on in an argument about whether or not My Little Pony is fantasy and nerdy.
Yes.
And most importantly, 11 finds not quite a letter, more of a speech that Hopper had written to himself when he and Joyce were having that moment way back at the beginning of the season, trying to figure out how he should approach having a conversation with 11 about, hey, your constant necking is making it really uncomfortable for all of us, so let's just set some good boundaries.
And he basically says, like, stop growing up so fast. Like, I know you have to, but I just really love our time together, and I want more time with you. Yeah. And it's just, after everything, the most tearful, amazingly sweet. We should talk about how I'm in love with Hopper, and he has been my favorite character this entire time. Yeah. And, like, from the get-go.
And David Harbour does such a wonderful job portraying the many sides of Hopper, which in season 3, Hopper basically has 2 sides. Like, he's like the Incredible Hulk. Yes. Because he's either being pretty sweet or his very short fuse is lit and he is going apeshit on everything and everyone around him. So,
which I just love. Probably has something to do with my father. Whatever. So
Kelly and I kept calling him a barbarian because, like in D&D, a barbarian can, go into a rage, and he's even more powerful. And Hopper did that at the slightest provocation
all the time. So yeah, he was just fabulous, and this was such a good, like moment for him to show his vulnerable side. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how his favorite thing was watching TV with her on Friday nights.
And making ridiculous amounts of Eggo waffles.
Yes. And just all of those little things that he paid attention, and he loved being her dad. And it was just so sweet. So, of course, we're all sobbing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't cry, but I tried a little. So
I cried for you.
There you go.
Cried my ass off for the last 10 minutes of that episode.
I think I dropped a couple tears, which is the equivalent of a normal human, like, sobbing. So, if I wasn't broken. So, yeah, it was really good, really emotional, just perfect way to cap it off. Yeah. And so then they all leave, and you're just left knowing what's going to happen, because the buyers are gone and took 11 with them, and kind of leaves it open in that respect. And then the credit scene shows a Russian prison where these two guys come in and go to open a cage, and they're like, no, not the American, and take another guy and basically feed him to a demigorgon. And so you're like, they have an American in their Russian prison, which hopefully, if you're like me, gives you hope that Hopper is still alive. Because here's the thing, I don't trust off-screen deaths.
Yeah.
So they did not actually show you Hopper die. They showed Russian people explode, like the scientists that were coming into the room, but they never showed Hopper actually die.
Yeah. Which, if they had just failed to show Hopper dying and that had been it, I think I would have more hope that he's still out there. But the speech that Eleven gets gave you such, well, or me anyway, such a deep emotional payoff that it was almost more heart-wrenching than an on-screen death would be. And I think typically what I've noticed anyway is they come back when there's no deep, wrenching moment, you know, whether it's an on-screen death or watching another character process it. And also, in season 2, they make it pretty clear that the scientist who was responsible for 11 Powers, is he played by Matthew Modine? Is that
Yes.
that guy's name?
Yes.
So they make it clear that that dude is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And someone had to teach the Russians and tell the Russians that Hawkins was a place that they could go to make this machine happen. So much as I want it to be Hopper, I'm really worried it's just going to be Matthew Modine.
Which is also possible.
Yeah.
But I'm not trusting the Hopper is dead.
Yeah.
I'm holding out hope, even if it's a fool's hope.
I would
don't
love
even
to see
care.
him come back. I love him so much.
Yep.
So there is a new report that says Stranger Things Season 4 will start shooting in October.
Okay. Because they do take about a year to release new episodes, which is a little upsetting, to be honest with you.
Well, I think the
But I mean, it makes sense.
The
but
gap has been about a year and a half between each previous season of Stranger Things. So it was it was July, and then in October, and then July again. So maybe October 2020?
Point being, too long away.
Yeah. So we'll find out who the American in the prison is. There's still some type of active connection to the Upside Down. Mm-hmm. Who knows how strong that is.
11's powers are not working, so
Right.
there's a lot they can do with that, with her learning to reharness her powers. Odds are that weird goth gang from season 2 is going to have to come back at some point, because they made them enough of a focal point that I could see her needing them to help her get her powers back.
Yeah, that's a great
something.
point. They were such a big focus in season 2 that it would kind of be strange for them to never come back.
Yeah.
But
So that could be part of it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where things go from here.
yeah. But at least we get to see where things go from here.
Yes.
So, thank goodness.
And it ends with Steve and Robin trying to get jobs at a video store, which
yes.
is just fabulous. I love so much that they're still on the truth serum, and they have this amazing scene in the bathroom where Robin tells Steve that she is a lesbian. And it's so perfect because the whole season you're like, Robin is in love with Steve. Like, they're going to get together. It's going to be so cute. And then it becomes something else where for once, friendship is just friendship.
Yeah.
And I love Steve's character arc so much that he goes from being this douchebag bully who, like, wants to beat everybody up to this guy who Robin tells him that she likes girls, and that's really hard, especially at that time. And he's just like, all right, whatever, and remains her super best friend.
Yeah.
And I love his character arc to go from, like, yeah, this guy who cares about nobody but himself, and now he cares about everybody and takes care of everybody and, like, doesn't even care and will be the best friend of this super cute girl. And I just love their relationship so much.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I like that.
Big takeaways. Steve Harrington is the greatest character ever.
Seriously, I love him so much. I would marry that boy. He needs a good woman.
And he's so cute. So Stranger Things Season 3, definitely worth watching. For me personally, I think I enjoyed it better than Season 2.
Yeah.
It's not that I didn't like Season 2. Season 3 was just that amazing.
It really was. And it's rare to find a show that keeps you going without any dips in enjoyment level.
Yeah.
Especially by the third season, because there are a lot of shows that the first couple seasons are freaking amazing, and by the third one you're like, well, I love the characters, so I'm gonna keep watching, but my enjoyment level has dropped some.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, none of that has happened. They really just keep me more and more invested and more in love with this story and what's happening.
Yeah.
I have not had any dips in interest.
Yeah, and hopefully that holds true.
Yeah, I hope that holds true, but it makes me really nervous. We talked about recently how I don't like to watch shows unless I know it's going to end well, because then you get sucked in and have a crap ending and you don't get the resolution that you want. So
yes.
A lot of times I won't watch shows like that, but this one I didn't care and jumped in, and so I really hope it doesn't disappoint me.
I have faith.
Yes.
I think they're gonna keep on being strong all the way through Season 4. And hopefully when the time comes, they have the good grace to say, okay, that's it, we're done. And they don't try to keep it going.
I admire shows that are like, we've had our time, we're out. So
and I think good. I have no data whatsoever to back this up, but I have to wonder if maybe the Netflix model makes that a little bit easier because they aren't ad driven.
Yes.
So there are TV shows that will kind of lumber along on broadcast television because people continue watching it, which means that advertisers continue to pay for ad space, which means it keeps going.
Whether or not it should be still going, cough, cough, Grey's Anatomy.
And since Netflix is not based on ad revenue and Nielsen ratings and things like that, I think that hopefully that translates to them allowing shows to end on a high note.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which is my greatest hope.
Yeah, so thanks so much for listening, and tune in next time for 13 Ghosts.